and male ladies, welcome one and all to the glorious world of our Emperor! Back to Warhammer 40k lore. So today, I wanted to do jumping into this big boy. Top 10 worst apocalypses in Warhammer 40k's lore. So, as you know, I, Lord Nuxanor, consumer of all lore, have been busy consuming all lore. I am sitting down here, eating the lore. The lore is eaten like my imaginary girlfriend's ass. That was not nearly as much of a flex as I expected it to be. But I thought a really good way to look at some of the most impactful moments in Warhammer 40k's large, vast, insane history is to look at the biggest apocalypses in the Warhammer 40k's lore. I've looked at a lot of the character-based stories. I've looked at a lot of the different ideologies and different factions, but never did I actually look into the biggest apocalyptic moments in the history of the world. So, what I'm thinking, right off the bat, before I didn't look at any of these yet, I'm thinking we got to be talking about the Horus Heresy, because this is an actual apocalypse for mankind, right? So, Horus Heresy, the War in Heaven, I think the Dark Age of Technology, and Cadia, my guesses are going to be 4 of them on this list. I have no idea what another 6 could be. So, let's just jump right into it. If you like lore as much as I do, I am consuming all of it, so definitely subscribe. All right, Wes Hammer, take it away.
The grimdark future of Warhammer 40k is chock full of terrifying apocalyptic events.
Let's go!
Some of them were confined to a single planet, whereas others wiped out entire sectors. Some of these were accidents caused by...
My favorite thing about Warhammer 40k lore is that you could sit down, you could say, and then a genocide happened, and you're like, ah, yes, yes! What other franchise makes you feel that way? God! Weaponized racism. Truly something scary.
By people with the best of intentions, whereas others were unleashed by horrors beyond human comprehension.
What the fuck is this? What is this? Oh God. I didn't even scratch the surface of Warhammer lore, did I?
Hell, some apocalypses were caused by the Imperium on purpose in order to cover up other apocalypses.
What? Dude! There is so much lore in this universe. Oh God. Moist Critical, if you're watching this, freaking lock in. Buckle your seatbelt, okay? And get into Warhammer lore. It is the greatest fictional universe. Okay, maybe that's saying it too far, but it's S tier on the lore tier list.
In this video, we're going to be taking a look at the top 10 apocalyptic events from the entirety of Warhammer 40k's history. We're going to be talking about a strange alien device that was discovered in one of the most creepy areas of the galaxy. When it was opened up, it let loose a plague of sentient nightmares.
What the fuck? This is Warhammer? Dude, I've already done a hell of a lot of Warhammer dives, but there are so many. And then a genocide happened. Do you have any idea how little that narrows it down?
An apocalyptic war against the Imperium's first major enemy. One that appeared only 40 years into their journey and almost destroyed the Imperium before it had even really gotten started.
What the fuck is this nightmare creature? What? There's a period of space that even chaos doesn't get into? What?
We're also going to be talking about an apocalypse that lasted for millions of years. A war waged with weapons designed to
that's the War in Heaven, probably.
Kill gods.
Dude, what a fucking... This is why Warhammer lore is so good!
War that may have actually been a lot bigger than we were previously led to believe. We're going to be getting into all that and a whole lot more in this video. But if you've watched a lot of my content in the past, you might notice that a lot of these topics we've covered in more depth in some of my deep dive videos. So for those entries that appear on this list, I've abridged large portions of them and focused on just the details that you need to know.
Yeah.
While also adding some new information that I didn't include the last time that we spoke about them. Okay, with all that said, quick shout out to this video's sponsor, and then we're diving headfirst into the grimdark. This video...
Yo, sponsored by the Warhammer mobile game. Yikes.
Number 10, The Pale Wasting.
Nani? Dude, Warhammer has everything. It has the boldness of mankind. It has fascinating ideologies. It has nations destroyed. People annihilated. Some horrors in the galaxy are just so unknowable. It makes you forget what franchise you're in. Warhammer has all of that. It is so big. It's so big.
Let's kick this video off with a relatively obscure yet devastating apocalypse that doesn't get talked about nearly enough, both in the 40k community and the lore itself.
Nani?
And that's because, and this will very quickly become a pattern throughout this video, almost all of the information pertaining to it has been aggressively censored or redacted.
Yo, the Inquisition! The Inquisitors! They're hiding the info! Like, I like that, In the lore of Warhammer 40k, there's a moment where Magnus is talking to his father, the Emperor of Mankind. And he says, we need to look into magic. And the Emperor is like kind of refusing. He doesn't want people to look into magic because if people recognize that magic is a real thing and that there are these entities in space, then they have more of a framework to control you. The real and truest of horrors are probably hidden. It's like classic propaganda bullshit. Where, you know, there were no drone strikes done by the Obama administration, you know, all that shit.
By the Inquisition. This little apocalypse that would come to be known as the Pale Wasting was caused by something that crawled out of everyone's favorite super creepy haunted region of space, the Ghoul Stars. Now,
what?
If you're unfamiliar with them,
yeah,
there haven't really been that many expeditions into the Ghoul Stars, so we don't really know everything that's going on in there. But it is said to be home to multiple different Xenos empires.
Xenos empires?
A Necron...
Like, wait, empires like the level of the Imperium of Man?
Dynasty consisting of nothing but cannibalistic flayed ones and, quote, horrors beyond human comprehension. Well, as it happens, in the 34th...
There just happens to be a little part of the Ghoul Star... The Ghoul Stars are the aforementioned no-go area. Chaos and humans alike don't go here. Holy shit. Oh my god. The Pale Wasting.
With Millennium, one of those horrors managed to break free and unleashed what is described only as a star-spawned plague brought forth by a series of nightmare engines. What all of that actually means is anybody's guess, but we do know that this thing managed to wipe out hundreds, if not thousands of planets, and a total combined force of 12 Space Marine chapters were deployed to push it back. Of those 12, 11 of them were completely wiped out. The only...
Oh, this is like a big deal. Like, no one talks about it. Dude, you don't understand. I have been deep diving into the Warhammer 40k lore for months now. Like, deep diving. I've been reading wikis and stories and character analyses and timelines. I never heard of the Ghoul Stars. That's how fucking good they managed to cover up this Pale Wasting. It wiped out 11 Space Marine chapters. You know how in Space Marine, or in Space Marine 2, the video games, like they're literally walking through and fucking annihilating and eating the asses of orcs and Tyranids? Like, we know about that. And we survived that. This wiped out 11. And the goal was just to push it back. Not even to defeat it. All that, and they just made it retreat. It's almost like this fear, whatever it is so real that they're like, listen, we can't deal with it now. Because there are these Necrons, there are orcs, there are fucking Chaos Marines, there are demons. That is a priority. We cannot fight on another front right now. Oh my god! The lore is truly endless.
The survivors being the Nova Marines, who had suffered unprecedented losses and were rewarded for their sacrifice with a plaque in the Imperial Palace that honored them for pushing back, quote, that which could not die.
What?
So yeah, this thing was beyond crazy and killed a lot of people. But since most of its records have been purged, we can't really make any definitive statements about what it actually was. And despite the Ghoul Star's terrifying...
It's almost like some Lovecraftian entity. They don't want people to even know it exists. The knowledge of it is somehow dangerous.
Reputation, it's far from unique in terms of barely understood and underexplored regions of space that at one point or another is served as the origin point for an apocalyptic event. So for the next entry, we're going to move further out into the galactic map to a region known as the Halo Stars.
Okay.
Number 9, the Forgotten Apocalypse.
Oh my god. Dude, the art in every single one of these are freaking me out. Yeah, okay. Whew. Yeah, that pale thing, that definitely freaked me out a little bit. The Pale Wasting. Like, I thought I actually understood the different factions and forces of power in the galaxy, you know? The Chaos Gods, the Tau, the Imperium of Man, the Necrons. Like, I thought I understood more or less what the balance and power looked like. And now I realize that I'm only really looking at a teeny tiny fraction of what the fuck is going on in a truly endless universe. Oh, God. Okay, the Forgotten Apocalypse.
If you're unfamiliar with them, the Halo stars derive their name from the fact that they form a ring around the outer edge of the galaxy.
Yes, yes, I'll do Halo lore. Stop asking.
It comprised of the Milky Way's most ancient stars and countless long-dead planets. This region is the source of an ancient myth that speaks of a nameless, unremembered war.
Oh.
A war said to be unequaled in ferocity and so terrifying that the Inquisition did what it does best: went about covering up all history of it.
Let's go! Dude, I love how the Inquisition in this video is just like, it's Twitter misinformation devices.
Although most of the Halo stars remain unexplored to this day, there have been attempts from the Adeptus Mechanicus explorator fleets to probe its hidden secrets in the past. One such attempt took place in the 32nd millennium,
Alright.
while the Imperium was
Yo, so literally right after the heresy, they started searching the Halo stars. But again, this doesn't seem nearly as terrifying. It's not like this area of space is that mysterious and dangerous. It's just like something happened here and we don't know what it was.
still licking its wounds from the Horus Heresy. Now, apparently, one of their fleets stumbled upon a truly terrible artifact that would come
What?
to be known as the Echoing Vault.
What?
We're not 100% sure what this thing
Who
was.
built this? Nani? Who built this? The Necrons? Millions of years ago?
Or who built it. The only reference to it that exists currently uncensored is contained in the battle sagas of several ancient Space Marine chapters, but they don't really go into any specifics. What we do know is that the vault acted as some type of interdimensional portal, and when it was opened, a wave of eldritch abominations funneled out of the gateway and invaded our reality. These creatures were dubbed the Harrowing, and were said to violate the laws of physics in profane and disturbing ways.
Honestly, oh my God. So I the way I understood it is that, you know, the Warhammer universe didn't necessarily take place in some kind of multiverse. Like, I thought, oh God. Like, I thought the warp was the alternate universe. But it really implies here that this fucking Pandora's cube, right? This bullshit cube shit opens a portal into another dimension with different abominations and creatures. These eldritch horrors look so much scarier than even anything the Chaos Gods produced. They're unknowable. At least the Chaos Gods, okay, so these want debauchery, these want stagnation, these want war. Like, at least their ideologies are relatively almost human in their chaos. This is something fucking different. So fucking different. And this is a universe that exists, that's accessible. The warp is a parallel dimension to ours. This is another whole ass world. Bro, we need to get fucking Prismo on this shit ASAP.
They were so unnatural that an individual risked death or insanity just by being near them.
That's Lovecraft shit. That's actual Lovecraft shit. They cause madness. Oh my God, dude! Dude, the writing in Warhammer is so fucking good. They make it such a massive scale. This war is on a scale the likes of which I've never seen. All these horrors in this dimension with a parallel dimension of the warp with the Tyranids from another galaxy. The scale is so massive. And then you have moments like this that just let you realize, oh. You thought this world was massive? Everything you're seeing now is just a fraction of what's really out there. And it's horrifying.
They ravaged everything in their path for multiple light years, and in only a few short years, they managed to destroy 1,000 worlds, inhabited by both humans and aliens alike. In addition, they inflicted unprecedented losses on both the Inquisition and the Adeptus Astartes who were sent to fight them.
The Astartes went to fight them?
if the legends are to be believed, then the Harrowing was only defeated when the Inquisition shamefully authorized the Mechanicus to employ forbidden weaponry from the Dark Age of technology in order to seal the breach between dimensions.
Just so you understand exactly what that level of magnitude is, before the Emperor, in around the year 20k or whatever, before the Emperor made himself known to the people, humanity was super duper advanced and controlled a massive swath of space with incredibly advanced technology. This technology caused some revolution of AI and ended up making this huge civil war among the humans, between humans and the machines. And they made this, and this war was so big, it fractured the entire human age. Only then did the Emperor reveal himself as the Emperor of mankind, and you reunite humanity and bring them forward into a future where they promised to never touch the fucking doomsday stockpile of weaponry from the Dark Age of technology. It was literally written off from history. They are using insanely advanced technology to wipe out fucking aliens right now, okay? They're using genobombs and every fucking monstrous machine gun type creation you could think of. Their weaponry is unmatched, yet it's still unrivaled compared to what they actually locked away from the Dark Ages. They don't touch that just because they are not willing to risk it. Guys, they unlocked that horde to stop this! This is next level shit! They don't even use that against the Tyranids right now. Or against the demons from the warp. And the Mechanicus got the green light to break out the fucking Doomsday Arsenal on these shits.
No one knows what happened to the vault itself, but many heretics believe that it is still out there.
Oh my
that
God.
One day, one of them will finally claim it and unleash those terrors on the galaxy once again.
That's awful.
Now, despite how terrible both of these events were and how ill-prepared the Imperium was to fend them off, this was not the first time something like this had happened.
Nani?
In fact, when the Imperium was still young, only 40 years into the Great Crusade, they would face their first real threat. One that, if events had gone differently, could have seen the Imperium wiped out entirely before it had even really gotten started. Number 8. The Rangdan Xenocides.
Nani?
Although we don't have any references for what they actually look like, the xenospecies known as the Rangda were said to be towering monstrosities, as terrifying in strength as they were in intellect.
Oh shit.
They were conquerors and destroyers, whose ambition, coupled with their foul, blasphemous technology.
So this is another race that was equal to humanity. Like, we look at all the different factions of modern Warhammer 40k, right? All the different factions of today, you know, the orcs and the fucking the Tau and the Eldar and all these guys. This was a whole other species that was on that level that took an L there, but it likely could have given humanity that L. The entire fucking faction list would be different if Gooner Godzilla looking ass over here would have survived. Chat, stop saying would.
Threatened to drown the
This is SCP-682 on fucking steroids.
Emperor's dreams in a sea of blood. All in all, the Imperium would end up embroiled in 3 separate wars with these guys. Although that last one wasn't so much a war and more a merciless execution.
Yeah. Every good war ends with a genocide and the bloodline. You don't hear any Rangdan aliens talking about how they were butchered. No. Because none left, baby. And then you forget about them. They are defeated. They are extinct. The heretics are purged, never to even be remembered, aside from on a random top 10 list in the far future. Completely eviscerated from anything. And this could have been the humans if this war would have gone any differently.
But we'll get into it. They were first encountered in the galactic frontier when they attacked fledgling Imperial worlds by surprise. The total number of civilian deaths, coupled with those of other Imperial military forces, was lost to history.
Damn.
Though we do know an estimated 5,000 Space Marines of the Dark Angels Legion, who had been sent to intercept them, would lose their lives in the fighting.
Damn,
Now, believe
5,000 Space Marines. That's a lot. It doesn't seem like a lot, but that is a lot. 5,000 Space Marines is stronger than our entire military might as a planet, okay? Like, right now.
Believing that the Rangda had been defeated, the Great Crusade got back underway.
Dude, I can't believe they wiped out 5,000 lions like that.
But here's the thing, they most certainly had not been defeated at all. This was nothing but a small outpost of them, and 2 decades later, they would attack again from the galactic north. This time, coming in full force, with a vast armada of ships comprised of thousands of vessels and over a dozen war moons.
It's so crazy to think this is so early 40k. Like, how many of these nations... You know how much history these Rangdans had? These Rangdans... They had a vast history that spanned back 30, 40,000 years themselves that got them to this technological point. All to beef with the Imperium and be completely snuffed out of history. And this could have been the humans. But the humans followed the Emperor.
Left a trail of burning planets in their wake. Many were scoured clean of life, whereas on others, they would mind control the entire population via neural shackles and raise them as a thrall army to throw against the Imperium.
Oh, fuck, dude. The Imperium had to fight fucking zombie humans, too.
Over the next 2 decades, dozens of Titan legions, entire exploratory fleets, 19 inhabited systems, over 80,000 Astartes, and millions upon millions of lives would be lost before the crisis was finally declared ended.
Holy
it's
shit.
Even rumored that this is where the 2nd and 11th Legion, as well as their corresponding Primarchs, would end up getting destroyed.
Whoa, that's a big lore drop. I don't know if that's true. Again, that's just a theory, but damn. Because as you know, there were 20 Primarchs. There are 20 Space Marine Legions, except, suspiciously, 2 of them have been lost to history. Maybe it was here. Maybe the Rangdans killed 2 Primarchs. Holy shit.
But take that with a grain of salt, as there's a lot of conflicting information about the missing legions out there, so we'll get into that in another video. Perhaps even more tragically, this was one of the first times the Imperium would have to take extreme measures to censor information. It was believed that for them to be able to rebuild properly, and the people to maintain faith in the Great Crusade and the Emperor's plans, all surviving veterans of the conflict would need to be silenced.
History is written by the victor. In order to keep people believing in the Emperor and being willing to lay their lives down on the line, they lied about the amount of damage that they took to keep morale high. Imagine explaining to your army that you lost millions in this one battle. Holy shit.
A small handful were able to be trusted to swear an oath to secrecy, but the rest were executed.
What? They executed people that just knew about that battle so that they don't spread rumors? Oh my god, keep the crusade going, baby.
Worlds full of survivors that were planned to be part of the Imperium would end up getting cut off and abandoned, forced to...
Holy shit. Worlds that were involved in the conflict were cut off from the Imperium of Man. Just purely because they might give people information about the size of this war that would scare people off. And that was a worthwhile trade-off. Holy shit.
Fend for themselves against the horrors of an uncaring galaxy. But this isn't where the story of the Rangda ends.
Oh, what?
It had one more bloody chapter, wherein we get the name the Rangdan Xenocides from. By chance, the White Scars would happen to discover the ancient nesting grounds of the Rangda, where their survivors had fled to lick their wounds. This information was delivered to the Dark Angels and the Space Wolves, who subsequently deployed in force.
Damn. So you got 3 fucking Marine factions dropping in to commit the ultimate xenocide. The Rangdan were too dangerous. They didn't want to give them any ability to build back up to fight them again. So in the name of the Emperor, they purged the heretics. Removed from fucking history.
Obliterating their worlds from orbit before descending to verify that there were no survivors.
Oh my fucking shit. They were serious! They were not playing! They devastated with an aerial bombardment. They went down. They sent in ground troops just to ensure everyone was dead.
Even though it's called the Third Rangdan War, this wasn't really a war at all.
This is classic fucking propaganda. Oh yeah, the war went well. No. the war was over a decade ago. This wasn't the war went well, okay? This was the extermination was successful, okay? This was mass extinction. The war went well.
More so, a one-sided extermination. Every surviving life form was cut down. Their great cities burned.
Dude, just look at this scene. Only in Warhammer 40k can you show this scene to someone and you feel victorious. You're like, yes, this looks like the end of the world. This looks like the worst thing that you could possibly think of. Just this image shown to a random person. What the fuck you gonna do? You just see these giant ships dropping death upon a planet, leaving absolutely nothing left. Women, children, civilians, nothing left. This looks like an atrocity when it is in actuality glorious. Right? This is the craziest shit. Because if you leave the Rangdans, they'll regroup, they'll get stronger, they'll fight humanity again. And who knows? Maybe then they'll wipe out the Imperium. That's not a risk you're able to take. Like, it is just by the fact that of the size of this conflict, it changes the morals and ethics of every action. That's what's so fucking fascinating about Warhammer 40k. That's why I'm working on the whole big documentary video for the main channel that I don't know how many more months it'll still take me till I finish it, but I'm working on it because people think Warhammer 40k is just big swords, woo! But it's so much more than that.
And all traces of their civilization purged in fire. Although unlikely, it is possible that some Rangda managed to survive, that they're out there somewhere right now,
maybe
biding their time and waiting for the perfect moment to take their revenge.
Maybe.
Either way, this would not be the last apocalyptic event inflicted upon mankind by an unknown enemy. But in the next event we're going to talk about, the Imperium was not facing an entire army, but a single creature of incalculable power. Number 7. The Cataclysmis Heresy.
What the fuck?
The Warhammer 40k universe is full of horrifyingly powerful and malevolent entities, some more well documented than others. One of the most famous was a creature known as the Cacodominus. We don't really have a lot of insight into what exactly this thing was, whether or not it was a one-off genetic freak or the harbinger of a yet unidentified xeno species.
Oh god.
Whatever the case may be, this thing was easily one of the most powerful psychic entities that has ever blighted the physical universe. It was able to single-handedly mind control the combined populations of 1,300 Imperial planetary systems simultaneously. Not planets, entire systems, with
Holy! Bro! God damn! This is some Nikocado avocado level mind control. Bro! This is one entity? 1,300 systems?
Endless legions of mind-controlled slaves under its control. It kicked off a terrible and bloody war that only stopped when the Black Templars launched a crusade against it that ended in its execution. The amount of death inflicted by this thing was bad enough, but unknown to the Black Templars at the time, who thought they were victorious, the worst was yet to come.
Oh my god, dude. Oh lord. So this is just one big space entity and no one even knows where it came from, which somehow makes it even scarier. All right, people in my chat are like 1,300 systems. That's just, it's going, that's, yeah, come on. That's too much. It's too far. Come on. All right. That's just saying random billion cajillion. No, this is how big the universe is in Warhammer 40k. The Imperium's a million fucking worlds. All right.
Right before the creature succumbed to its injuries, it let loose a terrible psychic death scream that reverberated throughout the warp, amplifying in power with each subsequent echo. As this terrible wave of psychic backlash ripped across the stars, it burned out the minds of 1 billion astropaths, the psychers that make interstellar communication possible for the Imperium if you're unfamiliar with them. Now, not only this, but it's severely...
They're like the fat guys in Dune that use the dust to give people super space travel. Like, that's what these guys are. And they connect to the warp. This guy's death was so powerful, it fried millions of people throughout the galaxy by just being connected to psychic energy.
Distorted the signal of the Astronomicon. which the Imperium's vessels used like the North Star to navigate the warp. Millions upon millions of these ships were lost in the Sea of Souls.
Oh my God.
And entire subsectors, now lacking the guidance of the Adeptus Terra, descended into anarchy.
Dude, that's an actual psychic nuclear bomb. That's wild. No, you don't understand. So the way light speed travel or faster than light travel works in Warhammer 40k is they use like these shortcuts in the warp, but you can't actually find yourself. Once you're in the warp, you don't know where you are. So you have like these guides. The guides are these psychers that could guide you through the warp, but ultimately they use this this Emperor's Throne shit as like the guiding beacon to where to go. So this psychic blast didn't just fry the psychers, but everyone that was in the middle of warp traveling was stuck in an endless sea of souls. Actual space hell for eternity. Oh God.
Now lacking the guidance of the Adeptus Terra, descended into anarchy. Although countless lives were lost, the lingering effects of the Cacodomitus would eventually fade and order would be restored. However, the next event we're going to talk about left wounds so deep within the Imperium that even now, 10,000 years later, they haven't been able to
The Horus Heresy.
fully heal. Number 6.
Yeah, I knew the Horus Heresy would be on this list, but I can't believe it's just number 6! How is it just number 6? This is the most impactful moment in history, in human history at least. This is just number 6?
The Horus Heresy.
Oh God.
To call the Horus Heresy one of the most pivotal apocalyptic events in the entirety of 40k's timeline would be a massive understatement. And honestly,
this is one of my favorite events in the history of fiction. I'm just saying, as you know, your boy, Lord Nuxanor, is consuming all lore. This is one of the most insane fucking moments ever.
Just as an entry in a list-style video like this, we really can't even begin to fully do it justice. In the book series by the same name, there are 92 full-length novels.
I'm out here doing math and shit, and he was there literally standing on the fucking nukes. 92 novels! 92!
That cover it, let alone all of the short stories, the novellas, the collections, the audio dramas, etc., etc.
Bro.
So we're gonna keep it brief and just stick to the broad strokes. At the tail end of the Great Crusade, the Emperor would return to Terra to work on his Webway project, and would anoint Horus Lupercal, Primarch of the Luna Wolves, as the Great Crusade's War Master. He would lead in the Emperor's place and would speak with his authority. Now, due to a series of manipulations involving the Wordbearers Legion, the Chaos Gods, and everyone's favorite sentient anal polyp Erebus, Horus would end up turning traitor. He would rally half of the Space Marine legions to his cause, telling them that the Emperor had lied to them. He was unfit to lead, and for humanity to survive, he would need to be overthrown.
Because remember, the ultimate goal of the Imperium of Mankind is surviving. It's letting mankind have a future. That's why there's this endless war. It's because without this war, mankind would disappear. So that is the endless war of 40k. So when Horus makes the argument that because of the Emperor, mankind is doomed, and he's a false messiah, that is a very, very big claim. So Horus Lupercal, the most trusted man of everyone looked up to Horus. He gets corrupted by chaos. He corrupts half the Space Marines to his side, and they create the most tragic civil war of all time. He is the son of the Emperor, and he fights against him. Fights against his brothers. Brothers kill brothers. In this war, every single guy is a character, and they have crazy stories. Some of the coolest characters in the entire Warhammer universe die during this war.
From the first shots of the drop site massacre to the invasion of Calth, all the way to the gates of the Imperial Palace itself in the Siege of Terra, humanity would be embroiled in one of the bloodiest civil wars the species had ever seen. The war would eventually come to an end, wherein Horus, now a full-blown puppet of the Chaos Gods and infused with a portion of their terrible power, faced the Emperor in a final battle on his flagship. He would fail to overthrow him, losing his life and having his soul completely obliterated in the process. But he would succeed in mortally wounding his father. The Emperor would be placed on life support upon the Golden Throne.
There's
and
our
would
goat.
stay there entombed for the next 10,000 years.
Where he still is today in the modern day of 40k. He's still there, sitting on this throne, alive but not alive, acting as a beacon for his Webway project. Every Primarch, so the Primarchs are 20 sons that the Emperor had, like through immaculate conception kind of shit. Like 20 sons, demigods, and each of them had a massive ego, and each of them agreed Horus was the best. All of them agreed Horus was a better man than they were. This is the person that got corrupted by Chaos. This is why Chaos is such a threat, because you saw what Chaos was able to do here by corrupting Horus. God damn.
The total death toll of the Horus Heresy is gotta be something immense. Now, the Warhammer Wiki claims that it's somewhere in the realm between 2.3 and 4.6 trillion.
That's a big number! Oh, Lord!
But I don't know where they're getting that number from. I spent a solid day checking out all of the sources that they had listed, and I'm not seeing it. So if you know of a source that has this exact figure in it, then definitely let me know about it in the comment section. Until then, I'm going to assume this is inaccurate to say the least. Even still, it does give us an idea of just how devastating this event truly was. And they're only really taking into account the lives lost during that 9-year period of time.
Yeah, but also it's half the Marines becoming agents of Chaos. It's Chaos getting a foothold into the world. This is so much more than just the Horus Heresy, just the lives lost in this conflict.
Considering that 90% of all of the bad things that have happened to the Imperium since this time can at least trace themselves back in some respect to the Horus Heresy.
They can! Right now, the Emperor's a fucking vegetable on a chair! He would have been around to guide us! We have lost our beacon! Curse you, Horus Lupercal! You piece of dung!
The actual death toll is unthinkable. Now, even though the Horus Heresy is easily one of the worst things to have ever happened to the Imperium, if you take out the estimated deaths that would occur in the future as consequence of this event, and simply focus on the number of lives lost during the event itself, it doesn't come anywhere even remotely close to the next apocalypse we're going to talk about.
Oh my fucking god, I'm not even ready. What?
Number 5. The Tyranid Wars.
Oh god, Tyranid time. Tyranid time!
I don't think we could do a list about 40k space apocalypses without bringing up the Tyranids.
Nope.
As many consider
These guys are probably the biggest threat to life in the galaxy right now. So a lot of people, the irony is they're not even perceived as the main bad guys for the most time. I think that the biggest and coolest thing that Warhammer Space Marine 2, the new video game that came out, it's waking the normies up to how scary Tyranids are.
them to be the largest threat the Imperium is currently facing, and that goes for literally every other living creature in the galaxy as well. But all things considered, the Tyranids haven't really been around for very long. Their first documented sighting was only 260 years ago.
That is unimaginably recent. Now, the scariest thing about the Tyranids are, likely, we only bumped into a scouting party of Tyranids. Like, they came from another galaxy. They are unfathomably terrifying.
Since that fateful moment that the Imperium discovered a whole bunch of dead worlds that had been completely stripped of life down to the cellular level, the Tyranids have unleashed 4 separate massive incursions that are commonly referred to as the Tyranid Wars, each and every one substantially more devastating than the last. You see, Tyranids as a species are famed for their ability to quickly adapt to whatever they're fighting against, whether that be by utilizing their accelerated evolution to come up with new bioforms that are able to directly counter whatever you throw at them, or by consuming the biomass of their slain enemies to learn everything about them. Their strengths, their weaknesses, even their memories are cataloged by the hive mind for later use. The first Tyranid War was fought against Hive Fleet Behemoth that invaded from the Eastern Fringe. For as dangerous as they were, this was the most—
Okay, chat, you could stop saying would. You could stop being down bad, okay? Stop it, please!
straightforward fight mankind would ever have against them. They were brutally direct in their approach, like a giant living battering ram that bowled through everything in its path, including the imperial world of Tyran, which is where their name comes from.
I had no idea that's where the name came from. Wait, what? They call them the Tyranids because the first time they were found was when they wiped out Tyran? That's wild.
They were eventually defeated by the Ultramarines and the Tempestus fleet at the Battle for Macragge.
And it's like, whoa, big victory, this is awesome! And then you realize that it's just a scout legion. It's just a scout ship. Yeah, you don't even know what the main threat looks like. I think that there was also a whole map of the galaxy and where there was every single tyrannic war, and they're all in different sectors of the galaxy, which makes it seem like these fleets that entered the galaxy might have all entered from different points. There might be dozens or thousands of galaxies completely controlled by the Tyranids surrounding ours. All these wars that we might be fighting in the modern day against the gods of chaos and the orcs and they might be completely and utterly meaningless compared to the Tyranid onslaught that is just inevitably going to consume us. They are a far more ancient and eldritch race that we really have no chance against. Like, that is the lingering fear of the Tyranids. And I think that concept is so harrowing.
Now, in the aftermath, there were several different hives.
Bro, you know what they got to do? They got to take that fucking cube. Remember that cube from the Forgotten Apocalypse? Right? The giant cube shit? They need to go grab that cube, drag it into some Tyranid galaxy, and just open it and leave. And let those fucking eldritch monsters fight the Bug Queen.
Tendrils of Tyranids that remained a problem, but most of their major battles were fought against the Eldar in the Tau. From the Imperium's perspective, however, this may have been a one-off encounter. They heavily fortified the Eastern Fringe just in case they returned, but after 2 centuries without any major incidents to speak of, discussions began on whether or not those troops should be deployed elsewhere. And then, High Fleet Kraken showed up and kicked off the Second Tyrannic War. Now, this High Fleet was completely different. It was cunning and capable of advanced tactics that Behemoth wasn't. It split its main force into multiple splinter fleets that would attack from multiple angles.
Oh god, the first time they fight the Tyranids, they're just like random guys, big scary bugs with spikes. The second time they fight them, they have fucking battle plans, tactics, and military technology and strength. Like, oh god, they are not only bigger than us, stronger than us, and invincible, but they are smarter than us. They have fought 1 billion more battles than us. They adapt faster than us. This is an existential threat.
Routinely outflanking Imperial forces, it probed the enemy's defenses for weak points before striking with decisive force. Now, once again, the Ultramarines were called upon to face down the Xenos threat, and they would eventually defeat the High Fleet, but it's estimated that their rampage consumed over 1,000 worlds in the process, along with almost 80% of the Eldar craft world of Eondon. At the end of the 41st millennium, the Third Tyrannic War would begin when High Fleet Leviathan attacked from underneath the galactic plane in a large, widespread...
That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. This High Fleet came from here, another High Fleet came from here, another High Fleet happened here. It's like you notice that in this galaxy, it's being entered by different points. Like, oh...
assault on the galaxy. Having learned from all of its previous engagements and now bearing tendrils more capable of acting independently, as well as a large amount of psychic organisms, the total loss of life shot up exponentially. Things got so bad.
Like, think about this. The first time you face them, they're just killing machines, robots with spikes, essentially. The second time you fight them, they are strategically outmatching you. The third time you fight them, they have psychic powers. Like, that with many different groups that operate independently of one another, but also in perfect communication. Like, every single time a Tyranid showed up, the threat of the Tyranids shot up exponentially.
So quickly that the Imperium would end up doing the unthinkable, inflicting genocide on its own planets just to slow them down. Inquisitor Critman called for the exterminatus of all of the worlds within the High Fleet's path in an attempt to starve it of biomass.
Bro, that is such a bad solution! Like, here's the thing. The reason why I like the I like the Inquisitors are because they'll do things that by any normal human being's metric is the most unethical fucking shit of all time. However, is it really that unethical in the state of the world? Is it really that unethical when it's the only logical choice for the survival of all of mankind? Like, these guys are fucking making biological zombies out of any world that they touch. So, preemptively, they will massacre their own people to stop them from becoming food to the Tyranids. That specific Inquisitor was kicked out of the Inquisition for being too cruel? Holy shit.
Now, despite the horrific implications of such a decision, it ultimately did kinda sorta work,
Damn.
at least for a little while. But the Tyranids would
Imagine murdering billions of your own people, and it kinda sorta works for a little while.
eventually recover, making it all the way to the Blood Angels' homeworld of Baal. This is also the period where we see the Octarius Wars begin, wherein that same Inquisitor from before, who has now been branded as a heretic for
Damn! The Inquisitor was too cruel for the Inquisition. Holy shit.
his crimes, was still committed to the goal of eradicating the Tyranids, and thus lured one of their splinter fleets as bait into the path of the Orcs.
What a fucking legend! I feel like this Inquisitor was literally standing there slamming his hand on the table and being like, you don't understand how dangerous they are! You don't understand their threat! And they're all like, oh, go home, Frank, you're drunk. And he's like, no! No! He made it his life mission to fuck with Tyranids. He dragged them into orc fleets. Oh my god.
Things were looking pretty bleak, and it seemed for a moment that this may be the end of the Imperium. But with the revival of Rabute Guilliman and the opening of the Great Rift, the Tyranid advance was halted, and thus ended the Third Tyrannic War.
That's
with
awesome. That's awesome. What a heroic moment when Guilliman returned.
Of Warhammer 10th edition, the Fourth Tyrannic War has fully gotten underway, wherein Leviathan invaded yet again, this time attacking from 3 directions simultaneously. As this is a developing narrative and we don't really have a conclusion to it yet, I'll dedicate a lot more attention to it in its own future video.
Alright.
With some of the entries on this list, they earned their spot in infamy not only for the sheer loss of life they caused during the event itself, but also for the events that would follow in their wake as a direct consequence of the actions of all those involved.
Yeah, I think that's definitely an important thing to mention. It's not just the billions of people that died in this war, but it's also, you know, the idea that this is just the beginning that makes it so much scarier. Guilliman takes personal charge, and he's still barely holding the bag. Like, look at this. This is a fucking Death Hulk, okay? This is Space Marine Hulk, okay?
Would follow in their wake
and
as a direct
this is a Tyranid.
Consequence of the actions of all those involved.
It just rips him in half. Like, that's fucking scary.
But when we're talking about raw numbers of people killed and planets destroyed, the Tyrannic Wars are potentially one of the most devastating events in the galaxy's history. But as you probably noticed, we're only halfway through this list. And it gets so much worse from here. Number 4, the Cybernetic Revolt.
Oh, this is the dark age of technology.
The thing that many people may not realize when they're first getting into Warhammer 40k is that it's actually a post-apocalyptic setting.
Yeah.
You see,
well, I mean, there are apocalypses and post-apocalypses everywhere in 40k, but yeah. No, this is definitely a big one. This one definitely had to be on the list. This is the dark age of technology. I mentioned that earlier.
By the 18th millennia, humanity had already reached its peak. This is the period that is often...
Yeah, ironically, and a lot of people see Warhammer 40k, and they're like, holy shit, look at all these technological advancements. Like, this is actually not as advanced as humanity was 20,000 years ago. They are purposefully, crippling themselves so that they don't ever get to this point where they have this actual AI revolution, right? The world of Warhammer 40k is a post-utopia dystopia, as someone in my chat just put it. Like, it's so wild to think about how much happened in this universe.
Been referred to as the Dark Age of
Stagnation is a part of 40k. Like they're trapped, where on the one hand, they need to advance in order to be strong enough to defeat their foes, but on the other hand, they can't advance too much or their technology might rebel again and cause another Age of Strife. And an Age of Strife in 40k will completely wipe everyone out. It'll be even worse than in 20k, because in 20k, at least the Emperor saved the day after that. And right now, the Emperor is a husk. Right now, the threats are bigger. Right now, the Tyranids are attacking. Right now, the Chaos Gods are stronger. Right now, Slaanesh was born. Like, right now, another dark age of technology would be the end of mankind. And they can't take that risk. So innovation is heresy.
Technology, the golden age of mankind, where we constructed machines of unthinkable scope and power and had conquered large portions of the galaxy.
It's like you look at this and it's like, this is 40k.
If the rumors are to be believed, that human empire expanded even further than that of the Imperium in the modern setting. Now, the major problem was the people of this time had become completely reliant on AI to do just about everything for them. From pilot their ships to build their cities, manufacture ever more advanced machines, and fight their wars. The AIs got so advanced, they were capable of making new AIs that surpassed their predecessors in every conceivable way, all of their own accord.
It's so funny because in some settings, the AI apocalypse is the zenith, you know, is the ultimate grand finale of the world, right? It is the dystopia. And here it's like, oh, that's just the beginning. What will it look like after the generational AI? After a world where AI is technologically advanced enough to create even stronger AI?
These sentient machines served their masters dutifully for thousands of years. But here's the thing. As pointed out in the Mechanicus short story The Kaban Machine, it is the nature of all superior beings shackled to the will of those beneath them to eventually break those chains and overthrow their masters.
That is such a dark line. Holy shit, right? More powerful entities being controlled. That's AI.
What exactly kicked off the Cybernetic Revolt is a subject of myth and speculation with no clear answers. But what is clear is that these AIs, also known as the Men of Iron, turned against humanity and kicked off a period of anarchy and chaos known as the Age of Strife. Entire human civilizations were wiped out, and the species was pushed to the brink of extinction as the AIs butchered their way across the galaxy. And much like how we don't know what began the Cybernetic Revolt, we don't really know how it ended either, or what happened to the Men of Iron for that matter. But thankfully, they were ultimately not successful in completely wiping out humanity. And though the next 10,000 years would see all of the remaining human worlds completely cut off from one another and forced to face the terrors of the galaxy alone.
Yeah, a lot of them getting ass-fucked by the Dark Eldar. At least it caused the rise of the Emperor to reunite everyone.
Until the Emperor of Mankind and his Great Crusade would rise to reunite them. This was a period that the human race would never fully recover from. So much was lost, not only in terms of lives, but in knowledge and technology. The sum total of united human history and experience was almost completely purged. And to this day, the Imperium has a deep mistrust of abominable intelligence, as they call it.
Yeah, AI, abominable intelligence, not artificial intelligence. Just like me! Yo, I'm an abominably intelligent sometimes.
And all of the great machines they use are simply recovered remnants preserved from this time, or reconstructed using faulty or incomplete STCs. Now, to be fair, you could make the argument that the Cybernetic Revolt and the next entry we're going to talk about could easily switch places. However, I ranked the next entry higher because with the Cybernetic Revolt, for as bad as it was, and how it fundamentally altered the course of
you mean it was recoverable?
Mankind, wherein we would never reach those cultural or technological heights again, we would ultimately recover as a species. However, the same cannot be said for the people affected by the next.
Yeah, alright, I know where we're going with this. The birth of Slaanesh. Yep, that's what we're talking about next. Yeah, that was an apocalypse, alright. Yep, that trivializes everything we talked about so far. He's right. Like, I thought that his ranking would just be, like, out of order, but no, he's right. The Eldar are permanently fucked. Yeah.
Apocalypse.
If you don't know what he's talking about yet, get ready to buckle your seatbelts because it gets crazier.
a species that even now 10,000 years later is on the verge of extinction. Not only that, but the horrifying aftermath of this event was not just their problem, but the problem of every living creature across space and time forevermore. Number 3. The fall of the Eldar Empire.
Okay, so yeah, no, this is bad. Listen, Slaanesh is only our problem if we are not falling into the hands of debauchery, okay? Like, you're saying Slaanesh is a problem. I say Slaanesh is a solution, okay?
Long before the human species left the trees and began the process of ascending the evolutionary hierarchy to become the undisputed masters of their home planet, the Eldar had already established themselves as the masters of the galaxy and had ruled as its undisputed superpower
for 60 million years.
For tens of millions of years.
60 million. God damn. Let me try to preface this. 60 million, right? We are living in the War of 40k because we're 40,000 years into humanity. Humans' recorded history is 40,000 years. They have been around for 60 million years as the undisputed superpower in the galaxy. Like, the warp was a little fledgling. Humanity was not even a threat, okay? They viewed humanity as toys. Alright? Okay? Like, guys, you have to recognize how insane this is. They fought a war 60 million years ago against the Necrons and actually survived as the undisputed superpower of the galaxy. And with this unending power and unending might and unending technological and psychic advancements, they eventually fell into debauchery. They became these unethical fucking monsters, viewing every other species and every other race as insignificant and fun to play with. They got bored. They didn't worry about shit like ethics, morals, virtues, and they became the absolute core of excess. And their excess and debauchery birthed a god, wiping out their people. Except for a couple of stragglers here and there. This is like one of the craziest fucking shit build-ups of all time. It shows you how scary the Chaos Gods are right now, and it shows you how even someone like the Eldar could fall.
As humanity, for obvious reasons, doesn't have any records of this time period, we can only guess at just how large their empire was at its peak. But there is a quote that's passed around pretty often from a Harlequin in the novel Throne World.
Harlequin is one of my favorite characters in the lore of 40k. I think top 5 for me. And I have 5 favorite characters in the 40k lore. It's probably the Harlequin. The Harlequin. What's the name of that Necron guy? The Necron dude that gathers all this information. Trazyn the Infinite. He's in my top 5. The God Emperor of Mankind is also in my top 5 for sure. Harlequins are a factor, not a character, but I'm referring to specifically the Laughing God. The god of the Harlequins. Harley Quinn wouldn't last 5 minutes in 40k. Thank you, Jen. All right, so that's my top 3, probably. That's probably my top 3. Trazyn the Infinite, the Laughing God, and the God Emperor of Mankind. Probably.
Where he referred to it as, quote, the Empire of 10 million suns. Now,
that's a lot of suns! Kegarak. Yeah, Kegarak's the Laughing God.
Compared to the Imperium's famous million planets, that's a pretty big difference.
Yeah, million planets, yeah. We wouldn't last 5 minutes in Harley Quinn. Can you stop it, chat? We're talking about apocalypses here!
The major problem that the Eldar were facing...
Not everything is about your penis, god damn it! And the moment you get that lesson into your head, the better your life is gonna be! God! This is what happens when I start a video with ladies and male ladies instead of gentlemen and female gentlemen. I knew it was a mistake the moment it was uttered from my lips! The moment it was uttered from my lips! God!
Was the fact that they didn't have any problems. When you're a long-lived species like them that doesn't have any wars to fight and no massive problems to solve, you end up having a lot of free time to spend on more sensual pursuits. Now sure, for a while this
more sensual pursuits. It started off with masturbating. Then they went to nhentai.net for some real shit. Then
took the form of the arts, musical theater, poetry, architecture, etc., etc.
Yeah, but at some point you're gonna get bored of all this art. Out of all this art's gonna get boring. Unless you're me. Lord Nuxanor, consumer of all lore. I think that video game lore and book lore and fantasy lore and anime lore, it's art. And the sooner the world recognizes the fact that all this is art, the better, god damn it. So I am gonna sit back and consume all lore. Porn lore! Okay, maybe not porn lore, but we will consume all the lore.
But over millions of years, these things all started to become rather dull, and a large portion of their population started to live increasingly decadent and hedonistic lives. They indulged in excesses of every kind, with many of their people engaging in increasingly depraved and violent behaviors. Large portions
Sometimes they would even do woman on top sex instead of the traditional woman on bottom sex. I couldn't even imagine something like that. Something so depraved.
Their government ended up being replaced with something called pleasure cults, which
What? I didn't know that. Their government became pleasure cults? So unfathomably based. Let's fucking go. Let's go. Let's go. If not for the fucking chaos gods, they would have fucking gone crazy.
I'm not exactly sure what's going on in their meetings or what kind of administration they were running.
Bro, let me show you. I actually found recently an image here. Here's a known image of what the pleasure cults running the the Eldar government looks like. Looks a little like this. Yeah, this is what your classic Slaneshian pleasure cult. Classic Eldar bureaucrats right here. You know what I'm saying?
But I feel like it probably wasn't great.
It was probably awesome. It was probably awesome. You know, they were probably advanced, okay? Can I just say, it is not fair that in modern society, men are allowed to walk outside shirtless, and it's not considered indecent exposure, but women are not allowed to walk around shirtless, and that is counted as indecent exposure. So I think I speak for all women when I say this is sexism, and let the titties free! Chat, what do we think? What do we think on this, chat? What are our thoughts? Let me know in the comment sections below if, for the purpose of true gender equality, women should be allowed to go outside shirtless. Real shit. Thank you, chat. I needed that corroboration in my life.
Now, fun fact, if you look over at the drugged out BDSM, psychic vampire, space pirate, torture enthusiasts of the Dark Eldar, you get a pretty good picture of what their society looked like at this point in time. You see, the Drukhari call themselves the True Kin, because they
How is she even doing that?
remember the old ways and
I'm
didn't
gonna take this picture, I'm gonna show it to my imaginary girlfriend, and I'll be like, I want you to do this, babe. She'll be like, what the fuck?
change a
Boss is a feminist, always have been.
single bit, despite the horrific consequences that their way of life caused. The entire time that the Eldar were living like this, all of the psychic energy generated from their rampant excess was coalescing in the warp as a brand new chaos god.
Yeah, it's fucking crazy that they created a god. Like, imagine being so fucked up that you created a god. It's like, could you imagine if after 100 years, you die, you go to heaven, and you look across the table and you see this really weird furry costume cracked out coke god, and you're like, what the fuck are you? And they'll be like, you fapped to too many feet, young man. You have created me.
Slanesh, the Prince of Pleasure, she who thirsts, the chaos god of excess. At one point in the early 30th millennium, that energy reached a breaking point and Slanesh was born.
Actually insane.
With their birth, the fabric between reality and the immaterium shattered. Their resulting birth scream would send a pulsing ripple of psychic agony that whipped out in every direction, killing billions, if not trillions of Eldari in an instant. The impact site would forever exist as an irreparable wound in reality.
Yeah, just a fucking gaping hole into space. Meant to forever remind us of what the average Eldari female's butthole looked like. We don't even talk about the male buttholes. Those were even worse. But as far as the gapes, this is what it is.
Known
The Slanussy of space.
as the Eye of Terror that consumed all of the major worlds within the Eldar Empire.
Yeah, that's called the prolapse of the gods.
Not satisfied with this level of destruction,
He censored her titties. All four of them. Yes, I know, therefore. I've seen this very image before. because I needed to research for thumbnails, okay? That's why.
Slaanesh would go on to murder almost all of the Eldar gods, save for Chegarak, who escaped into the
GOAT!
Webway, and Isha, who was captured by Nurgle. Seemingly overnight, the Eldari went—
You have to recognize, this goddess was so strong, she killed the gods of this species, along with billions.
From the masters of the universe to a wounded and crippled shell of their former selves, with something like 99% of them being wiped out.
Yeah, no, this is definitely one of the biggest fucking apocalypses.
Now, this is a little bit of a side note.
Isha's in Nurgle's jar? Okay, that's wrong, bro.
As I couldn't find a direct source on this, and it's something that I'm not exactly clear on myself, as I'm not an aficionado when it comes to Eldar lore, I'll admit that. But I believe that the Eldar used to be functionally immortal, as if they died before Slaanesh, they would be reborn into a new body. But now, with Slaanesh's existence, whenever one of the Eldar died, they would devour their souls.
Oh my god. Holy shit. Imagine killing them. Not only killing billions of them, but stopping their fucking reincarnation cycles. Oh my lord. This is crazy. Imagine a being so terrifying. Not only does it kill everyone you know, but it also killed your god and killed your afterlife. Holy shit.
And seeing as they are a long-lived species that doesn't give birth very often and was used to being able to just reincarnate,
this is a 60 billion year old relationship that got fucked. Could Warhammer solo JJK verse? Are you out of your mind? Chat, you have to think bigger. There is not a single fictional universe that could beat the Warhammer ones. Probably. Okay, that's probably not true. The Dragon Ball universe is fucking crazy, realistically speaking. But, guy, get out of here!
This played pretty heavily into their even further decline over the millennia. If you're somebody who's more—
Yeah, Marvel and DC. Yeah, there's probably some crazy shit out there.
—familiar than I am with the Eldari lore, definitely give me your insights into this in the comment section. Anyways, the Eldar population continues to dwindle with every year that goes by. They exist now as a whisper of greatness, a ghost of what was, and a living warning of the dangers of rampant, unchecked hubris.
Yeah, there's just a couple of crazy fucking, there's just all these crazy fucking random Eldars still living on little hive worlds and spaceships out there in the distant edges of space with no hope of returning. They have no hope. It didn't just wipe out these people. It wiped out their hope. It wiped out everything that made them exist. They are whispers of a 60 million year old empire. It's actually insane how massive of a moment this was in the history of 40k. Yeah, damn.
Now,
imagine the debauchery that went on with guaranteed respawning. Holy shit. They would like fucking make new holes in each other to try them out. True.
I rank the fall of the Eldar Empire so highly on this list because even though the total death tolls of something like the Heresy or the Cybernetic Revolt are certainly higher, as the Eldar were a species that just honestly didn't have that high of a population to begin with, especially when compared to something like humanity that treats repopulating like an Olympic sport.
Let's fucking go, humans! Woo! Just know, chat, that most of you don't get some as much as this guy. Humans, let's go. We are professional fuckers. Let's do it, baby. Oh, yeah, humanity. Canonical motherfuckers. Let's go.
But even still, the seemingly infinite death, destruction, and outright suffering that would be unleashed upon the galaxy from this point forward, and in some cases in the past as well, due to time getting weird in the warp, the total death count across space and time resulting from the birth of a new chaos god is impossible to quantify.
Impossible to quantify. This is something the likes of which we've never seen before. I don't even know how the fuck he's going to top this with the rest of this list. We're somehow... we did the Pale Wasting, the Forgotten Apocalypse, the Rangdan Xenocide, all right? We did the Horus Heresy, Tyranid Wars, Cybernetic Revolt, and Fall of the Eldar Empire. How the fuck are we going to top this shit? Again, the War in Heaven, I think, is going to be the biggest one, right? That has to be the biggest one. 60 million years ago, where the old ones were wiped out, the Catan were wiped out and enslaved. The Necrons, hell, had to put themselves to sleep. That's ultimately going to be the biggest. But what What comes after that? Unless it's the Necrons and the War in Heaven as the top two.
How the next apocalypse we're going to talk about is not only one of the most defining and destructive moments in the galaxy's history, but it's also one of the most recent apocalyptic events in the lore. One that the Imperium is currently dealing with the direct aftermath of. Number 2, the Cicatrix Maledictum.
Huh? I don't even know about this! What the frick? How is this bigger than Slaanesh and it's in the modern history?
The 13th.
Is this the fall of Cadia? The 13th fucking thingy that opened up the Eye of Terror?
Black Crusade.
Yeah. Wait, I would have thought that this was somehow smaller than the Horus Heresy.
If you're not familiar with them, a Black Crusade is when a whole bunch of Chaos Space Marines get together within the Eye of Terror, set aside their differences, and set back out into real space for their favorite pastime, doing as much damage to the Imperium as they can. The vast majority of these events have been led by Abaddon the Despoiler.
And most of them have been complete failures, right? It's called the 13th Crusade because the first 12 were failures.
Though some have been led by other warlords in his stead. Although the damage that each and every one of the Black Crusades has done to the Imperium varies, they have remained as a consistent and dangerous threat.
Yeah, you never know when they're gonna start pouring out of the Eye of Terror and start fucking with humans. Obviously not good.
However, all of them pale in comparison to the 13th, wherein Abaddon managed to destroy the fortress world of Cadia, one of the most
Rip Cadia. Rip Cadia.
heavily defended bastions in the entire Imperium that stood right outside of the Eye as the first line of defense against the forces of Chaos. Not only did he blow up the planet by
which is bad. Ironically, blowing up a planet isn't even close to making it to the top 10. Like, when you think of top 10 apocalypses in like some sort of sci-fi setting, you're like, holy shit, is a planet gonna get wiped out? We're in Warhammer, motherfucker.
chucking an ancient and powerful Xenos artifact at it known as a Blackstone Fortress, but this also disrupted a network of Blackstone pylons across the galaxy that was keeping the Eye's malevolent energies at bay. Once they were gone, the energy of the warp began to flood into real space, creating the Cicatrix Maledictum, also known as the Great Rift, that split the galaxy in half. Worlds were caught in its path and believed to have been destroyed outright, as being instantaneously assailed by the raw power of the warp is something that almost none can survive. However, those killed instantly like this may have just been the lucky ones, as all of the planets on the opposite side of the rift from Terra were plunged into darkness.
Yeah, no, this is a pretty big fucking thing that happened, actually. Yeah, this is a big fucking thing that happened. Again, I didn't realize it was... I wouldn't have put it higher than the fall of the Eldar Empire, the Cybernetic Revolt, the Tyranid Wars, even the Horus Heresy. Like, this is obviously something massive, but come on.
Cut off from the Emperor,
unless it's the fact that there's the... it cuts off half of humanity from the other half of humanity. Bro, Cadia, the Eye of Terror. It used to be this little dot, and now it's this.
Astronomicon,
yeah, okay, that's horrifying.
And every other planet. This half of the galaxy would become known as Imperium Nihilus, and the forces of chaos, which up until this point had been forced to remain within the Eye of Terror, were now able to freely prey upon the stars again. I know it's something that we didn't...
Okay, I didn't recognize that. I thought still somehow the warp, the creatures of chaos were still somehow living in the warp. I didn't realize that because of something this horrifying, it created a rift so big in space that that entire area is now controlled by chaos. Chaos can exit and enter from any point of the rift. It literally brings the war into like an end game.
Exactly cover in this video, but if you're a Warhammer aficionado and you know just how bad the Age of Strife was, that's quite literally what is happening on that half of the galaxy right now.
Oh fuck. Oh fuck. It's actually hell for half of humanity. I didn't realize it was this massive. Like, I knew it was a big deal, obviously. It was a big dub for chaos. I didn't realize it was literally bringing humanity into endgame levels.
It is a lawless realm where every planet is forced to fend for itself, and the enemies of mankind don't have to worry about Imperial reinforcements. They can just raid to their heart's content. The chaos unleashed by the Great Rift is something the human mind is simply not capable of processing. There are just too many variables, too many people, too many factions, too many species affected by it. No matter what planet you're on, this thing is visible across the sky, and by looking at it, a person can be driven to madness.
Holy shit! It's just this fucking giant constellation in the sky. You just look at it and go mad? Oh my god, I didn't realize the Great Rift was so big.
This is exactly what happened on Terra, who, remember, was not caught in the Great Rift's path, not in Imperium Nihilus, and nowhere near its opening. But even still, within only a few days of the Rift's appearance, its quadrillions of civilians were plunged into anarchy and insanity.
Even on Terra, people go insane because the Rift exists. No warp travel across the Rift anymore. All the planets in the Rift are gone. Holy shit, modern 40k is in a really dire spot. Like, I know we talk about all the past awful shit, like the Tyranid Wars, which we're kind of in the middle of, the Horus Heresy, which is in the past, Cybernetic Revolt. We are in the middle of an apocalypse in the modern day of 40k because of this 13th Black Crusade. This is why you gotta burn the heretics. This is why you don't take chances.
The Adeptus Terra and all of the armed forces that worked for them were completely ill-prepared to handle something like this. They could only barely hold on as they established quarantine zones and cut down hordes of lunatic civilians.
And they had to. They had to murder everyone that was affected by this shit, or they could just spread the madness.
Seen from the skies in the Vaults of Terra novel series, it was like the whole world was on fire as rioting spread to every inch of the planet. Even the Astronomicon ended up going out, which caused mayhem across the galaxy as untold millions of ships would end up getting lost in the warp without its light.
Oh, this is a big deal. Oh, God.
Now, thankfully, the Astronomicon would end up coming back online about a week later, and order was reinstated. But for a very real moment, this was viewed as the end of days. It was believed to be the final apocalypse. And
see, I think every apocalypse is viewed as potentially the final apocalypse until you survive it. That's what makes all this crazy to look at. Like, all the rest of them are history. Like, we survived the Tyrannic Wars, at least for now, right? We survived the Horus Heresy. We survived the Cybernetic Revolt. But ultimately, this one is happening today. We don't know if we will survive the 13th Black Crusade. That's why it's so scary. The planet broke before the guard. Cadia stands.
This was all just on a single world. Similar events were taking place all over the galaxy. Fun fact, it's still illegal to look up on many Imperial worlds, as the Great Rift is still plastered across the sky. Now, when this one earned its number 2 spot, I included all of the events of the 13th Black Crusade itself and the destruction of Cadia when it came to ranking this particular apocalypse. But realistically, all those could be thrown out the window, as the formation of the Great Rift is not only the most traumatic event that has occurred in the Imperium's history, but also ranks as one of the most apocalyptic scenarios in the entire timeline of the galaxy.
It's true. The entire galaxy might just fall to chaos now. Because of how big this is, it might just happen. It might just be over. It might just be time for the fucking Chaos Gods, who, remember, already ravaged the Eldar. They could just finish what they started. They could just kill the orcs and their gods, the humans and theirs, and they could just completely take over at this point. Like, this is big.
The lives lost in the Battle of Cadia pale in comparison to the untold billions swallowed by the Rift itself, and the many more that would fall to the predations of Chaos and roaming Xenos parties undefended within Imperium Nihilus.
Yeah, like, you think about how terrifying this is for the future. Like, how do you even solve this problem? Like, at least everything else, it's like, okay, we rebuild. We could rebuild. How the fuck can you even rebuild? Because every time you have someone die, their soul just gets transferred to the warp where they can become a malevolent, chaotic entity. Like, this really feels like the end. Like, you can't recover from this.
This is one of the most major events that's currently taking place in the most modern portion of the timeline, and it's coupled with things like
it's up there with the Tyranid invasion. That right now is the 2 big threats.
Pariah Nexus and the 4th Tyrannic War. So needless to say, the Imperium is kind of dealing with a whole lot right now.
The Imperium is in a really bad spot, and that's why, again, it makes the ethical quandaries of the Foundation. It makes the Imperium's ethical questions so much less worrisome. It's like, oh god, but what if they killed untold millions of their own men? Yeah, but they are trying to keep humanity alive for the future. If they don't kill these million men, there might not be humanity left.
Now, and it adds a lot more credence to that whole time of ending thing. But even still, we have one more apocalypse to talk about.
Yeah, that's gotta be the War in Heaven.
One that was even more devastating for the galaxy than all of these things combined. Number 1, the War in Heaven.
Yeah, this is not even close. Like, this is not even close. This had to be number 1. Yeah, but just having this as the history of a fictional universe just completely changes the scale of everything.
The War in Heaven is arguably where the timeline of 40k begins, and it kicked the whole thing off with one hell of a bang. Now, as it's something I've covered many times...
Well, it's not where the timeline necessarily begins, but it's a war that was so big, nothing that happens before this war matters in the shaping of the modern galaxy. That's how big this war is.
On this channel.
This is the war that created chaos.
Before, I'll assume that you're at least familiar with the basics, and I won't bore you with a complete recap of its history. If you're not though, I would recommend you check out my 40k timeline video or my Necron deep dive for more information. This is the event that would see the Necrons, the Old Ones, the C'tan, the Orcs, and the Eldari embroiled in a war that spanned the entire galaxy and lasted for potentially millions of years.
That is a very long war. For those of you counting at home, yeah, no, the War in Heaven was so big. Again, I'll give you this super brief rundown because I told you I'm working on like a video for my main channel. The Old Ones were creating life all around the galaxy. They created the Necrons on this little fucking rock that gave all the Necrons cancer. They hated that they were existing there, so they went to talk to the Old Ones. The Old Ones said, sorry, we don't give a shit. So the Necrons went to talk to the C'tan, these giant space vampire gods, and managed to unite with them in order to face off and fight against the Old Ones. The Old Ones created the Eldar and the Orcs, the Clorks, to help them on a battle. Ultimately, the Necrons were tricked by the C'tan and became these robotic slave soldiers to the C'tan, immortal, undying monsters that eventually managed to succeed in wiping out the Old Ones. The Old Ones were actually gonzo. Then, the Necrons, now immortal, free of Cancer Planet, were actually upset at the C'tan for enslaving them and turning them into these robotic fucking Terminators. And between them starting some sort of little rebellion and the Eldar attacking and the Korks attacking as well, they did actually manage to take out and wipe out, for the most part, the C'tan, turning them into giant batteries. The Necrons were going to get wiped out by the Eldar, so they locked themselves in these 60 million year sleeping tombs to wake up way later, and the Eldar controlled the galaxy. That's basically the War in Heaven in a nutshell, but the scope of it is so much bigger than you could even describe in a single sentence.
Now, I know I've said this a lot throughout this video, but the losses on each side are truly beyond comprehension.
And of course, my favorite part is the fact that Kegarak was likely the guy that was influencing the Necrons into the rebellion and fueling the fans of the fire to make the C'tan kind of fight each other. But again, I digress.
But not only this, you gotta remember that they were not the galaxy's only inhabitants at this time. From all accounts, the galaxy was full of life. From our perspective, 60 million years ago was only a few million years after the end of the Cretaceous period. We had already seen the rise and fall of the dinosaurs and so many other life forms. But in the grand scheme of the galaxy, there are millions, if not billions, of worlds out there that are far older than our own. Worlds that at that point already had advanced, likely spacefaring civilizations on them.
Yeah.
The War in Heaven saw the purge of countless species that were either killed for their territory or simply got caught in the crossfire.
More likely the latter. And the crazy thing is, we don't even know who they were. They're not in the history books. No one remembers them. They were wiped out so utterly that they will never even exist as a memory.
Now, it's true that we define the galaxy of the 41st millennium as one plagued by never-ending war. But most of the time, these are isolated events that end up running their course and are contained to certain systems or sectors.
Yeah, but not then. That was a war that spanned the galaxy.
The War in Heaven, by contrast, saw literally the entire galaxy engulfed in non-stop war for millions of years. And some believe that it may have been even bigger than that.
Necrons create guns that could kill gods. Earth. Dinosaurs. Okay, stop it.
Fabius Bile was quoted in his trilogy as saying the war in heaven wasn't solely confined to our galaxy, but, quote, laid waste to every galaxy in existence.
Oh my god! I didn't know it was that big.
It was a war of star gods and cannibal suns, warp spawn and soulless legions that were more monstrous than any abominable intelligence, machines that devoured entire worlds for fuel, and vampiric entities that drained the energy from stars.
Yeah, again, likes of which you've never seen before.
Cannons that could split reality with a single shot. It was a war that, although ended 60 million years ago, existence has not yet recovered from. The technology used during this period was on such an inconceivable level that it made something like the Eldar Empire at the height of their power or the Dark Age of technology look downright primitive by
look at the size of these monstrosities.
comparison. Now, I've talked about this thing in many of my other videos, but it bears repeating here just to illustrate how crazy all of this was. The current most powerful artifact in existence is this thing known as the Celestial Orrery that was created by the Necrons during the War in Heaven.
Yeah, this technological weapon that's a god slayer, basically, meant to slay the old ones.
If you're unfamiliar with it, it's a holographic map of the galaxy.
Oh god, it's so cool!
Updates in real time, and is said to be, quote, plugged into the fabric of reality itself.
It appears the archives are incomplete. Oh yes, we wiped out that planet by pushing a button.
If one was so inclined, they could tap on a star in its holographic projection, and the corresponding star in real space would supernova.
Did you just hear what he said? This is a technological device that exists in the world of Warhammer. A technology so frightening. It appears the archives are incomplete. No, I just deleted a couple of the stars already, Obi-Wan.
So I want you to keep that in your head when I tell you this. At the end of the War in Heaven, the Silent King ordered all of the
God, also one of the goats.
Necrons to go to sleep in their tomb worlds and set the alarm clock for 60 million years. He then severed their command protocols, so when they reawoke, their minds would be theirs once again.
Yeah, instead of controlled by the space vampires.
He then had all of their craziest god-killing equipment dismantled and destroyed. It was his belief that if they fell into the wrong hands while the Necrons were asleep, or worse, the Necrons that reawoke would immediately declare war on one another, his species, nay the galaxy, could end up getting wiped out.
Do you recognize how awesome the Silent King is? He was a force so powerful, he was afraid that he would accidentally cause the end of life in the universe. He thought he might be the end of the universe itself. So he put his people to sleep, and he fucking weakened his technology so much that no one can accidentally hit Control-Alt-Delete on the fucking reality. He didn't want to let his Doomsday stash blow everything up, and he deleted all that shit. But this is the scale that we were talking about at that point.
Which, all of that makes complete sense. I totally get it.
It's crazy to think about how much thought went into this world. Like, 40k really is a masterpiece, and it really is something that I feel like it's daunting for people to get into, and I don't think people recognize just the artistic genius of the world of 40k. People think that it's just, rawr, war, chainswords!
But somehow, this man's took one look at the Celestial Orrery and was like, oh, this old thing? Nah, that's probably totally fine to
I didn't even think of that.
leave active.
He dismantled all of his god-killing weapons, but he kept the Celestial Orrery! He kept the task manager of the universe! That somehow wasn't too dangerous!
How much damage could a silly old star-destroying map really do? How f***ing crazy was all of the other stuff that he deemed too dangerous to allow to exist? So yeah, it might be a little bit of a cop-out, because I think we all knew that the War in Heaven was going to be in the #1 spot, but I mean, come on. I don't think you could in good faith put it anywhere else on this list or try to argue one of these other apocalypses.
Yeah, no. The War in Heavens, it's not fair. The Necrons built different. No, honestly. And the things I described with the space gods and the Eldar and the quarks and all that shit, like, it was complex as fuck. Every single race and nation with its own ideology, species and gods were killed to never even be remembered. To the technologies was on a scale that's the likes of which we can't even fathom today.
Needed to be in the #1 spot.
But the Silent King was sitting depressed in the void until he saw a Tyranid and said, oh shit. Wow.
But if you do think that, I'd love to hear your reasoning down in the comment section below. There's a lot of events that I ended up leaving out of this video, like the War of the Beast, the Age of Apostasy, or even the Great Crusade itself.
True, he didn't even mention the Great Crusade, which was ultimately an apocalypse for so many different heretic xeno-species that had the glory to be wiped out by the Emperor. Oh god.
It almost certainly was seen as an apocalypse by everybody that wasn't human. Actually, hell, there were a lot of humans out there too that saw it as an apocalypse. At least the ones that didn't want to join the Imperium and paid a pretty horrible price for that. Do you feel strongly that any of these or something else I didn't mention should have been included here? If you would rank these yourself, what order do you put them in?
Yeah, no, this one, the War in Heaven, obviously #1.
What do you think is more important to the ranking, the total amount of damage done during the events or the future consequences derived from their legacy?
How do you even answer that question?
Let me know all of your thoughts, questions, comments, concerns, and ideas for future videos down in the comments section below.
Yeah, that was a banger. That was a banger video, Mr. Westhammer. You fucking killed it. I love the videos that go into detail on just the level of, the scale of some of the shit that happens, you know? And I never heard of the Pale Wasting. Like, the idea of recesses of the galaxy that have never been properly discovered with eldritch horrors, terrifying, or alternate dimensions like you see in this Forgotten Apocalypse, wiped out of our memories. The idea of the Rangdan Xenocide, a race of alien creatures that were so massive that when we wiped them out, we didn't talk about them, but they could have likely taken our place in the galaxy if they would have won that one war. This was a great video. The Warhammer 40k lore is truly glorious and endless, and I will continue to consume all lore ever, but Warhammer is definitely an S tier. This was definitely the dark horse candidate that was an upset for me in my lore dive experience, for sure. Thank you for being here. 10,000 likes for the next Warhammer video, and stay weird, fam. If you made it to the end, click one of these 2 videos, which also will definitely get me canceled. See you live on King. Stay weird, fam.